Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over everything you need from start to finish to get started making signs. So here we go.
Alright guys, so we get questions all the time about where do I start? What do I need to get started making signs? So we're going to break this down into two sections. First is going to be tools, basic tools that you need to create a sign, and then we're going to go into the supplies section. This will give you several different options, things to think about from a standpoint of super good quality to maybe budget friendly.
So the first tool you guys are going to need is a saw. Now, obviously there's a ton of different options and you can go from really cheap to super expensive. For the basics, you can use a hand saw, right? That'll definitely work. It'll be labor intensive, but you'll save some money. A good way to really start is actually a jigsaw. These things are pretty cheap. You can get them for like 25 bucks and they'll cut most anything you want, at least to get started. We use the chop saw and the table saw more than anything, but again, that's when you're kind of getting into a little bit bigger of a budget, when you get a lot deeper into woodworking in general. And then obviously there's a handheld circular saw. These things are really versatile. You can do pretty much anything you want with these. You can run a straight edge and rip with them, or you can cross cut with them. We use this thing quite a bit.
Alright, let's talk routers. So first things first, I get this question on a regular basis, can I use a plunge base? You can, but this thing is so big and bulky and it's got so much mechanism on it, I just find it's not useful at all. Plunge base, just not my favorite. I wouldn't use it. So now let's talk about full-size routers. Can you use a full-size router? Absolutely you can. I did for 30, 40 years before the compact routers came out. So if you have a full-size router, you don't necessarily have to go out and buy a compact router. You can absolutely use it. You want to get a base plate for it, and we'll talk about that in the supplies. Now let's talk about compact routers. So I have three different versions here. We've got the absolute entry level, which would be from Harbor Freight for about 30 bucks. It's not my favorite. I don't hardly ever pick it up, but you can absolutely use this, and many of you do. Then we're talking about the rigid. The rigid is about 100 bucks at Home Depot. Lifetime warranty if you register it. We use it on a regular basis. It's one of Ryan's favorite. My favorite is the DeWalt, and now we're talking battery powered. I like the brushless, cordless routers now. It just makes things so simple. Again, that's high end, so it depends on where your budget is, but any of these will carve signs.
Now let's talk about sanders. Now again, you can go as cheap as you want to spending a decent amount of money on it. You have the old school sanding block or just using sanding paper. Frank Jenkins, our buddy from Texas, sent us this homemade sanding block and it works great, but not for taking off a lot of material. For years we used the belt sanders, either the freestanding ones or the handheld ones, and those work great. There's nothing wrong with them. It takes a little while to get the feel for them because it's real easy to gouge your boards and stuff, especially if it's not super flat, but they do work really well. Then you got the random orbital sander. This is great for finish sanding, but it's not all that great for taking off a lot of wood, even with a heavier grit. Then you have our go-to, the disc sander. This thing will cut a beam in half in 20 seconds. It takes off a ton of wood and it works really well, and it's super easy to get the hang of. And don't forget guys, we're gonna leave links in the description for all this different stuff that you can use to get started.
All right, so let's talk drills. This isn't absolutely mandatory, but we think it's a good idea to have one. Now we have a corded drill somewhere around here, but it's been so long since we needed it that I don't even know where it's at. So from a cordless standpoint, you can go budget, clear up to high end, and even beyond. This is just a Black & Decker. We've had 10, 15 years. It works fine. The Cobalt is a great little drill. We've had it for a long time. It works really good. And then we've got these Flex high-end ones that are phenomenal. We absolutely love these. You probably already have a drill, but we're covering this just in case. Now the other thing is, on any of these tools, you might check Facebook Marketplace, you might check pawn shops, you might check garage sales. There's all different kinds of places you can get used tools for super cheap. You don't have to buy brand new. That's kind of your call depending on what you want to do and what your budget is.
All right, now let's talk about air. So some people use shop vacs to actually vacuum the signs out. We don't really like that because there's always some sawdust that stays in when you're doing that. but there's several different options. You can use either compressed air like the little keyboard cleaner, which Dad and I have used on site when we went over to North Carolina before. Not the greatest, but it'll work. And then you have a couple little electric blowers. This one's a cordless rechargeable. This one is a plug-in, and they're fairly cheap. You can get both of these on Amazon. This is what I use in my shop at home in California. It makes it nice and easy. They're fairly inexpensive and they work really well. We also use this if we're going to carve on site. And then obviously there's a higher end version of an air compressor. We have, I think it's a 35-gallon Cobalt air compressor, and they're not very expensive, but it is a little more high end. We've had this thing for a long time and it just keeps on kicking. So one thing's for sure, you need some sort of air compression or a vacuum if you want to use that to get all the sawdust out of your sign before you spray it. So we're going to get a lot of hate if we don't mention safety stuff. Safety is always first, right? I've had to go to the clinic because I got sawdust in my eye. It sucks. So there's obviously safety glasses. I wear my generic prescription glasses because apparently I'm getting old. But there's also the face shields, which we wear when we're power carving mainly. Then you have ear protection, which these are actually pretty cool. These are Bluetooth, so you can listen to music and have your ear protection. Then you have your dust masks. These come in handy a lot if you're carving Med-X, which is kind of a composite and you don't want to breathe that stuff in. Then obviously gloves. These are the MaxiFlex gloves. You guys probably see us wearing these a lot. I love these things. I actually use them for shooting too. And then we have an apron. This stuff is key, especially if you're doing power carving. Those things really spin and they take off a lot of wood, so all it takes is one mistake and you're gonna get hurt pretty bad. So make sure you put safety first.
All right, guys, let's talk about wood. So what we've got here is a representative sample of what we have available to us. It may be different for where you are depending on what you have. So we've got the cedar pickets. Those are pretty cheap, very inexpensive. I think a 1x6 picket around here is $5 or $6, something like that, maybe even cheaper where you're at. And then we go to the common board. The common board is still fairly inexpensive. It's kind of a cheap version of pine. And then we're talking about the blue pine. We really like that. That sometimes comes in either shiplap or it comes in tongue and groove. Again, whether you guys have it, I don't know. Then we're talking about select pine, which gets pretty pricey. I think a 6-foot board of select pine is like $35, $40. And then live edge. If you're just starting out, practice on some inexpensive board. You know, either the cedar or the common wood. Don't spend a lot of money on material when you're practicing first starting out. All right, guys, here's the section that is a shameless plug for us. If you guys don't know and you're brand new, we make and sell supplies. That's how we actually support our business. That's how you can support our business. We think that a base plate, number one, you have to have a base plate, whether you make your own, but we have base plates for pretty much any router. Secondary, you have to have the right router bits. In the small beginner kit, which we recommend, it has a profile bit, a 90 degree and a 60 degree. We have other bits too, but those are the basic bare bones that we think you need. Next, we have a set of layout letters. Again, not mandatory, but they come in the small and the large beginner kit. On both the beginner kit, you get a router bit depth gauge, which we think is really handy to have. Now you can see what's included in both the beginner kit in the links down below. So now let's talk about spray stuff. So here we have the colors. We use mostly black. We've got the stencil ink. That's what we used for decades. Then a few years ago, we found the primer. It works pretty much the same as the stencil ink, which again is flat. And then you have the fusion, which is again a flat or a matte finish. Now, one thing to note, and you've heard us say it a lot, do not use gloss, do not use semi-gloss, do not use satin. Flat or matte finish only when it comes to spray colors or black. Now let's talk about finishing. So these are our two kind of go-to rattle cans. This is a Rust-Oleum clear. It's basically lacquer in a can. This is what we use for indoor signs. If you're going outside, I like the Helmsman Spar Urethane. You can get it in a spray can, but you can also get it in liquid so you can brush it on or use a sprayer and spray it on.
So now let's talk about just kind of miscellaneous supplies. A straight edge is a must. You can get really expensive $40, $50 straight edges. We just got one from Harbor Freight. I think it was like $4. Then you want your adjustable square. This is perfect for doing your layout with your layout letters and numbers. It's just making sure that it's even at the top and the bottom. Then you need pencils, obviously, and a good tape measure. I don't like the ones from Harbor Freight. This is a Milwaukee 16 foot and I love this tape measure. And then you need to have a pocket knife just in life, especially with woodworking. Nice little Milwaukee pocket knife. This stuff altogether might be 25 bucks, but it's stuff that you definitely need. All right, so there you go, guys. That's everything you need as far as the basics just to get started in carving signs. And remember, I'll leave a link in the description below for the sign carving kits and several different things that you can get from us, because we're us.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
And we appreciate you guys.
We do. We appreciate it.
That's our little commercial, our commercial part. Some of you guys have been watching for a while. You've been carving signs. If you think it's something we forgot, let us know. Throw it in the comments. Kind of think we covered all the basic stuff. There's obviously a lot more stuff that you could add on and help in your sign carving, but we wanted to just cover the bare bones basics.
All right, guys, so thank you so much for watching. As always, like and subscribe, and if you have any questions, you can email us, Ryan@makeawoodssign.com,
Eric@makeawoodssign.com,
and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Love you guys. See you later. Bye.
Bye.